Okay, this is absolute beginners. When I first started this is pretty much all I could do. I didn't understand anything about it, and this is like one. It's using solid fist and turning it. It's pretty much all it is, and then when you get over here, you just turn it back. So all you're doing is just digging the top. That's the top. So the top digs down, up, digs down, up. So it's like rowing a boat, I suppose. Now, once you start making your elbow, shoulder and wrist more fluid, you can eventually hold the stick instead of like a fist, you hold it between your index finger and your thumb, and then you can have that fluid rotating movement, and then you can also find you can get a lot more fluid activity out of it. So that's all I'm doing, and that's what's different. Instead of this strong arm, you make it a lot more fluid, and just by rolling your shoulder, elbow and wrists, it gets that fluid motion happening. So this is only singles. What you can do is once you start learning your fingers, so you just roll it between your fingers as it goes down and back up the other way. That's all I'm doing. So let's see. If you add that extra finger rolls on this side, once you get to here, normally you have to stop and reset and then go back, and then stop, reset, go back. So what you can do is you can add the crossover to the left side to reset your fingers. So as it gets to the end, you're rolling over, and then that resets it back to normal, and then when you come back, it's already back at the position of the start again, which then you just roll into your normal styles again. Okay? This is an extended one. Actually, I'll show you the first one. Okay, so that's pretty much all I'm doing. Except I suppose that last bit which I didn't explain is, as it comes to this point, it gets to here, and then I roll my hand over palm down from palm up. So palm up, finger rolling. And then once it gets to here between your last fingers, you palm down to roll it, and then it just rolls over the back of your hand, and then you catch it back between the thumb and index finger, and then you're back in the start position. This one here is basically catching it. So as you go to here, I stop and turn my hand and go into the next one. And because it's only halfway through the fingers, as you turn your hand and go to the opposite, you can then roll it back in the opposite direction, which then gives you that effect of being able to spin it in both directions rather than just the single. Whereas the single is just over and then back, over and back. Whereas if you catch it and roll it, you at least get 1.5 by the look of it. No, that's a full one. So it's a top-to-top revolution, which a top-to-top revolution refers to the top revolving around and then coming back up the top. You've got the extended of this one. So if you want, and when you get good enough, it takes a bit of practice. I mean, all of this takes practice, but at the end, when you get to the last fingers, you have a choice of rolling it over your hand, like I was saying, back to the index thumb, or once you get good enough, you can actually stop here, turn your palm down, and keep rolling it in the opposite direction of your fingers. So usually you're rolling it from thumb and index down to pinky. This one's now rolling from pinky back up to thumb and index, and stops there. That's the difference. So you got that, and then you roll it back over, and it comes down the other way. So this is just absolute beginners, introductory. Once you get the hand twirl finger movement, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. Okay. Once you get that simple one happening, this is the next step. So I'd call this intermediate. This is beginner. Intermediate is this one. Then you start getting into more like beginner advanced, once you can actually control the stick on both sides, which is very simple. It just takes finger control. And then the absolute advanced level, which is the furthest which I can get to is the actual extended 360, which is what I was describing as the last thing. So it's 2 revolutions on one hand. From here, if you want to use 2, instead of converting over to the other side, you can introduce your left hand. Here on the left hand, you've got your finger twirls, and this was introduced to me by Johnny. So all I'm doing is rolling it down, and as it gets to here, which normally you go palm down, swap sides, instead now I push and catch. So as it gets to those fingers, this hand comes in, pushes down on the stick, and then all it simply does is roll over the left hand, and then you catch it again. And that's all that's happening. So if you can just practice that up, you can actually get that rolling happening. So that's all that happens, and as you can tell, as you're rolling it, you're getting more closer to the end of the stick. So eventually you're going to run out of stick, and that's where you lost. So it's only good for 1 roll, 2 max, and then you're lost the balance of that center counterbalance effect. So basically all that happens is I'm just rolling it. So that's to here, roll it. So 1, 2, 3, roll. 1, 2, 3, roll. As I'm rolling it back, I'm basically bringing this hand up once it comes to this point. So after the roll, you catch it, you open your palm up, which then allows this to go freestyle. If you keep it stiff, you have to do more full body turning. If you loosen that up, you can have a lot more sway. That's the same effect, it just depends on how much you want to move yourself. Whereas that's just the thumb is the only thing rolling. So less movement is less effort and more fluid activity. And also gives you that a greater fluid look as well as appearance. That's all that's happening. So once you come to this point, after rolling it over, catch it, goes fluid. This hand comes in, so it's palm up, catches it between the thumb and index, and then you're back into it. That's all that's happening. So this one comes up and just catches it. So if you're watching closely, it's not that that gets caught there, it's more that it gets caught across here, but it's the same position of the stick, thumb, index. And that is basically something you can practice up, which will help you gain the skill and strength of your fingers twirling, give you that feeling of the momentum and movement of the stick, and also the left backhand roll. So that's basically everything that I can think of as the very beginner's twirling.